Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a fantastic day. In this video, we're going to be talking about all things Shadow of the Erdtree. Everything that has been officially and unofficially announced or confirmed, all speculation, when we can expect this expansion, and any other details we have. First up, let's look at a few facts and statistics. First off, Elden Ring has now been purchased more than 20 million times. This makes it one of the biggest and fastest grossing games in history. The first year of Elden Ring has been absolutely phenomenal. It truly is one of the biggest games ever, and it shows no signs of stopping. With more and more people grabbing Elden Ring every single day, the hype has never died down for this game. The community is insanely passionate, and the conversations around Elden Ring have never stopped. In its first year, Elden Ring has done better than any other game in recent years, and it's clear to see why. This is an absolute masterpiece. I know the whole community, especially myself included, are insanely excited for the DLC, and that is the last time in this video that I will be referring to it as DLC, because it has been confirmed on multiple occasions that this is a full-blown expansion. It's been many years since game developers stopped frequently referring to additional content for their games as expansions or expansion packs. And now the much more common term is DLC, or downloadable content. Though the two terms are used quite interchangeably most of the time, an expansion pack suggests something much larger. much larger. One of the first ever expansion packs I grabbed was Warcraft 2 Beyond the Dark Portal, and that was the expansion to the original Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness. And this was essentially a whole new game. Fully fleshed out campaigns, just as long and in-depth as the original, if not more so. And that, I believe, is what we can expect from the Elden Ring expansion. And we will come onto the release date and thoughts and opinions in just a minute, and I will elaborate on that more. For now, let me just wrap up this intro by saying that Elden Ring has probably the most insanely passionate player base that we will ever witness, who never stop creating new and inventive ways to play the game, enjoy it, and have fun. From no-hit runners to speed runners to challenge runners to people just wanting to try out new inventive builds, there is no end of content for you to consume and things to try out for yourself. I truly think it will be many years before we experience another phenomenon as epic as Elden Ring. So, in this video, we're going to take a look at everything we currently know, or at least think we know, about the upcoming expansion, the Shadow of the Erdtree. We'll be looking at speculation, themes, ideas, and most importantly, release dates. Let's start by talking about the not-so-good news, and even then, there is silver linings. Firstly, let's address the elephant in the room. There isn't an officially confirmed release date. But some incredibly solid and reputable sources have some very good information as to when we can expect this, and we will be coming onto that shortly. The other bit of not so good news is at present, very little information has been released in regards to what the expansion actually will and won't contain. However, certain new gameplay elements do appear to have been discovered through data mining and various rigorous members of the community that have been combing through the game files. And again, we'll be discussing them shortly, but please keep in mind this is mostly just speculation for now. However, I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you want to see more or less of in Shadow of the Erdtree? I will be discussing my thoughts and opinions and what we currently think we know later on in the video, but for now, what do you want to see more of? Maybe it's sleep weapons, dark magic, armor for Torrent. That is one I am personally very excited about. Now let's move on to the most burning topic of conversation for this video, the release date. I won't keep you waiting any further, so let's dive straight into when we believe Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is coming out. Firstly, let me just address and praise the two main sources we have where this information has come from, and that is gaming news writer Xstasis of Xputer.com and Jeff Grubb of Giant Bomb. One piece of news ties in directly with the other, so let's start off with Ecstasis. Both of these sites and both of these people have confirmed many leaks in the past of being accurate when it comes to these kind of things. Firstly, let's look at Xputer's article because it ties in directly with the information from Jeff. Armored Core 6 was announced last year with little further information to go on, not to mention silence on the game's actual release date. Sources have now revealed that the developers have a planned release window that falls between September and October for Armored Core 6. Unless there are further delays, there are more chances that this will launch in September rather than being pushed into October. So taking this first piece of information, let's be optimistic and stick with late September. Now, how does this tie into the Elden Ring expansion? Well, let's take a look. It was disclosed by FromSoftware that they want to get out Armored Core 6 before releasing the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. And we can also assume that they would like Armored Core 6 to take the spotlight for at least a month before any more news about Elden Ring then overshadows it. So if we say late September for Armored Core 6, the absolute earliest we'll probably be seeing the Elden Ring expansion is late October, early November. Now, a lot of people do believe that the Elden Ring DLC won't come out until early 2024. I personally think it will be out by the end of the year, but I'm not worried either way, and I will come on to some very exciting reasons why in just a minute. For anyone interested, just a tiny bit more news on Armored Core 6 for you as well. Many people did believe because of the success of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, etc., that Armored Core 6 will be influenced by them quite heavily. However, Miyazaki has confirmed that the new Armored Core title will stay close to what the series has always been and will not be influenced heavily by the Souls series. Personally, Armored Core isn't a franchise I have played before, and as it sounds like it is going to be very different to the other games from FromSoftware that I'm used to, it's probably not one that I'm going to play. I'm interested to know your thoughts. Will you be playing it, and do you recommend it, even as a standalone game? Now, back to Shadow of the Erdtree. I do reckon they will want to get this out before Christmas for that initial bump in sales. It's a great time of year to release a video game, and the sooner I can get my hands on it, the better. But I'm not impatient, don't worry, listen to the next few things I have to say. Obviously, we want this expansion as soon as physically possible. However, this is a huge undertaking, so much more than any title FromSoft have ever made in the past. Firstly, because of the DLC versus expansion pack discussion, but also just because Elden Ring was such a massive hit. They want to make sure that the expansion holds up and is just as good. So, expectations are insanely high, and they are gonna want to make sure they get this perfect. Therefore, the longer we do have to wait, the better of a sign this is. We need to think that every week, every month that we don't hear an officially confirmed release date, this is just another month to make the expansion even bigger and even better, and hopefully make all our dreams come true. Personally, I am really happy that they're taking their time. This is a super ambitious project. It's going to be massive. And another thing I'd like to mention that I haven't talked about yet is how much FromSoft do take criticism into account. They don't want to rush this, they want to make sure it lives up to your expectations, and they do not like to reuse enemies, bosses or NPCs, so I think we're in for new boss fights, new NPC questlines, new lore, and I'll discuss that all in depth in the next part of the video. Let's just wrap up our conversation about the release date first. The next thing we can do when trying to determine the release date is talk about the DLC from previous FromSoft titles. And when talking about this topic, I'm kind of going to shut myself down before I even start, because firstly, I will bring you back to the DLC versus expansion argument again, and secondly, release times for their previous games have been all over the place. For their first hit, Dark Souls 1, the DLC didn't come out for over a year. They then went the complete opposite way for Dark Souls 2, and 3 DLCs came out within like 6 or 7 months. It's become a bit more stable with recent games, both Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne coming out roughly 9 months to a year afterwards. But as I say, all of these timelines are irrelevant because they are all small DLC packs, not a full expansion like Elden Ring is getting. Now that we have discussed the release date, let's move on to the part of the video I am most excited about, what we can hopefully expect in this expansion pack. The most logical place to start would be analysing the screenshot from the expansion announcement. I begrudge giving my take on it because, firstly, I'll probably piss a few people off because we all have different interpretations, and secondly, this has been analysed to death, so I don't want to regurgitate loads of information that you've heard 7 or 8 times already. I want to bring something new to the table for you. So, for sake of argument, let's say that we're seeing Miquella and the Erdtree, because I believe, for the most part, this is the theory that people agree on. Obviously, there are variations. Oh, is it 2 trees? Is it a different tree that we haven't seen? Is it the Erdtree? Is it Marika? Is it Saint Trina? There are so many theories, but for sake of argument, for the purposes of the next segment of the video, it is Miquella and Erdtree, okay? Or go fight about it in the comments, it's fine. It's good for the algorithm. Go have a rant, tell me I'm wrong, please. The next most important thing to tell you, and this will be very interesting for people that are new to FromSoft titles, pretty much every single DLC has seen us travel back in time. So we can imagine that we are going to be experiencing Elden Ring in a different period of time that has already passed. Take from that what you will, maybe that will change your interpretation of the picture slightly. One theory that I love is, could we be seeing Caelid in its prime? This could be any area realistically, or it could be an entirely new area, because we're probably traveling deep into the past, and therefore we are seeing many things we have never laid eyes on before. As we are most likely traveling into the past, we should hopefully be able to be introduced and come face to face with so many characters, enemies and lore that we have only read about up until this point. I personally really hope they expand a lot on the outer gods, such as Miquella and Saint Trina. They seem the most likely to me. And talking about the actual gameplay for a minute, again, if previous DLCs are anything to go off of, this expansion will be insanely tough. Like, you thought Melania was hard? Nah, she's gonna be trivial in comparison to every single enemy and boss in this expansion. And following on from that point, tiny little cheeky shameless plug here, I have been going through a brand new 100% completion run of Elden Ring over on Twitch. We'll be playing that non-stop over the next few months, so please come over and check it out. And there is a reason I bring this up, there is a reason I'm doing this. For those of us who have played Elden Ring to death and have like level 300 characters on New Game Plus 5, you may think you're wiping the floor with most enemies at this point in the game. If you take that New Game Plus 5 character into the expansion, you are going to get destroyed, absolutely annihilated. The expansion cares what New Game Plus you are on, and all enemies will be leveled respectively. Therefore, I strongly advise everyone to get a brand new character, 100% as much of the game as you can, do all of the quest lines efficiently so that you're getting all the rewards, and keep yourself on base New Game. This way, you will give yourself the best chance and the best opportunity to not suffer through hell during the shadow of the Erdtree, because it is going to be insanely tough, I promise you. All of their previous DLCs have been. It's been brutal. Again, as I say, I'm really hoping we will witness a lot of enemies, characters, lore, armor, you name it, that have only been talked about at this point and never been seen, as this will kind of be like a prequel and will expand on the lore painstakingly crafted out by George R.R. Martin. And that leads me on to a great question. What would you like to see and be able to interact with for real that we've only been able to read about or experience after the fact up until this point? I think personally there are going to be some incredibly awe-inspiring moments, and I am so excited. And finally, let me just leave you with a further speculation theory and one small but confirmed piece of information. Imagine if we got to meet Rykard, or at least see him in some capacity, before he offered himself up to the great god-devouring serpent. In a couple of portraits strewn around Volcano Manor, we even see him wielding his sword whilst he was still a demigod, before he became who we know him as today, the Lord of Blasphemy. As you can see, his sword was not always the blasphemous blade, with the fleshy limbs of the god-devouring serpent attached to it. It was in fact the sacred sword of Lord Rykard, the Lord of Volcano Manor. And imagine if we could interact with him in some way, be it through a quest line or maybe even fighting him in a boss fight, thus allowing us to acquire the original copy of his sword and wield and use the sacred sword of Lord Rykard for our own. How much do you think it would differ from the version we wield today? And what weapon art do you think it would have? And finally, since the announcement of the expansion, Elden Ring have posted one more small thing on their Twitter, an item we already know is in the game, the description and crafting specs for the Warming Stone. But could this hint at similar items to come in Shadow of the Erdtree? Will there be more items based around the Erdtree that we are now able to craft? So much to think about, and I, for one, am extremely excited about the future of this game. And finally, I just wanted to thank everyone who has stuck around for this long. This is very different to the usual type of content that I do, but it has been tremendously fun, and I'm really excited to read all of your comments and thoughts. Let me know if you'd like any more content like this in the future, and let me know what else you'd like to see from me. And all that I have left to say is, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.